I gave my first TEDx talk last year, and I admitted to being a serial trespasser. And I suggested in that talk that trespass is good for cities. I explained that trespass has been a civil offense rather than a criminal offense in England since 1664, because essentially all of the land was diced up into private property, and so very often you had to cross someone's land to get from point A to B. However, despite the change in legislation, many landowners still denied citizens the right to cross their land. And so in 1932, the Ramblers Association rallied over 400 people for a mass trespass on Kinderscout. And this eventually led to the passage of the Countryside and Rights of Way Act of 2000, which assures all of us the right to be able to trespass. This event was later described by Lord Roy Hattersley as the most successful direct action in British history. And as a result, most of us would think nothing of trespassing in a farmer's field to climb a hill and take in the view of the English countryside, or indeed to photograph that countryside. Many of us would argue, in fact, that it is our right to do so. However, when we trespass in cities, people seem to take a very different view. People seem to harbor the notion that we have different rights in cities, that we shouldn't be able to trespass. And this has very important implications in today's political climate. Many of you will remember that when the Occupy LSX protesters set up their encampment, they tried to set it up in Paternoster Square, which appeared to be a public square. What they found very quickly, though, is that this wasn't a public square. It was a private open-air space that was controlled by the Mitsubishi Estate Company. The Mitsubishi Estate Company, because they are a private entity rather than a public entity, have a right to deny the ability to peacefully protest on their land. And so the protesters ended up next door on the steps of St. Paul's Cathedral. Now, this event raised a very important issue that's taking place not just in London, but around the country. The rise of pseudo-public spaces, spaces that look to be public, but are actually owned by private companies. And nowhere is this more disturbing than outside of City Hall. So that's the mayor's office, and all of the land around City Hall is owned by a Kuwaiti investment firm who bought that land 2 years ago for £1.6 billion in the largest land deal in UK history. Because that land is now privately owned, they can stop people from taking photographs, from loitering, from congregating in groups of more than 3. They can stop you from picnicking, they can stop you from camping, and of course they can stop you from protesting, even though none of these things are illegal. By devolving power into the hands of private companies, the government can, by proxy, initiate anti-democratic laws in the spaces that we live in every day. So I'd like to suggest that we're reaching a point now, just like in 1932, where everything is being diced up into private property and where we need the right to be able to trespass. I'd like to suggest that it's time for an urban rambler moment. Now, if you're not yet convinced, let me give you one more example. This is the Garden Bridge. This has been pitched by London Mayor Boris Johnson. This has received planning permission now. This bridge is going to cost £60 million of taxpayer money in an age of austerity, and it's going to cost £3.5 million of taxpayer money to upkeep every year. However, this bridge will be closed at 10 p.m. It will be closed to private functions at least 1 month of the year. It will be heavily surveilled, and groups of more than 3 are going to have to register to cross this bridge or to access it in any way. This is public money that's being used to create a private space that is inherently anti-democratic, and I hope that you find that as disturbing as I do. Rights of way are also under threat. I undertook a project a few months ago with The Guardian, where myself, Anna Minton, and Jack Schenker took a walk down the 180-mile Thames path. We walked a chunk of it that passes through London. This is supposed to be a public right-of-way. And when we walked it, what we found is that the map was so dissected by private property and security gates and businesses that it was almost impossible to find, let alone walk. In one instance, we actually had to cross through the lobby of a business to access the public space behind the building, and were accosted by security who asked for our identification to access public space. So the problem here is simple, right? We are losing public space because we don't know where public space is and because we don't know what rights we have in public space. Unfortunately, the solution is less simple. We need to know where public space is, and we need to know what rights we have in those spaces. So what I'm suggesting is a 2-step solution here. First, we need to map all of the public space in London, which sounds like a job for a geographer. Luckily, I am one. There are data sets that exist. This one from Green Space Information for Greater London tells us where all of the parks and formal gardens are in the city. Now, imagine if we were to create a database similar to this that you could access. It would be open source, it would be open coded, and you could find public spaces near you. So if you wanted to have a party with your friends on the river, or you wanted to stage a public protest with maximum chance of success, all you would need to do is log into the map and find the space. Of course, once you have the information, you need to use the information. And so what I'm suggesting in part 2 of this project is a season of urban camping, barbecues, parties, and protests, where we use public space to their maximum legal potential. This project is in its initial stages. I'm going to write a grant proposal over the summer to do it, but we've got some fantastic partners who are going to join us in this project, and we would like to now invite you to also join the campaign. That's the Facebook group that I set up 1 hour ago, and should be happily ticking away. Please join us, and I hope to see you out on the streets of London soon. Thanks very much.